Hello, everyone. Welcome to X Gates. Today, what I'd like to talk about kind of is like the Middle East on fire and how that affects the United States and how it's going to affect us individually or how it affects anything. So, because sometimes it's hard to even understand the Middle East, specifically the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and even now with the Assad regime just falling seemingly out of nowhere. Um, with Assad taking refuge in Russia and what that means to the entire area and the destabilization of the area. So, at first, I'd like to we got to understand what's going on in Israel. So, Israel is a nation that was founded after World War II um, because of the Holocaust, because of what Adolf Hitler did, which was horrendous and horrible. So, these Jews that were brought in, and the United Nations created the state of Israel. When it was created, a lot of the people who were governing were European Jews, which means they were Anglo-Saxon looking individuals who were there that had the Jewish religion. And at that point, the Palestinians, who were also in the area, it kind of created a bit of tension between the two because now these basically European Anglo-Saxon people are now in the area that are taking over, they feel, that are making the laws and are backed basically by the world, and nobody really asks them for their opinion. But on the other side, at this point, the Palestinians that were in the that lived there at that time remember that Hitler had taken over all the Middle East back then, and Hitler was very anti-Semitic. So whenever he took over governments or even spread his propaganda and the misinformation throughout the entire Middle East was a very anti-Semitic message. The Palestinians were not exempt from that. So the anti-Semitism ran very deep within the Palestinians. And mind you, it wasn't that long before Hitler was kicked out of the Middle East and then Hitler fell, but that anti-Semitism stayed. A lot of people say you have to go back to Abraham and stuff like that, and that's just not the case. You don't have to go back that far to figure out where this issue came from. Um, as with the entire area, and truth be told, this conflict, one of the major problems with this conflict is not so much like sovereignty or right to exist or anything like that. It is religion. And truth be told, religion at this point has really destabilized the entire area, which it has from the beginning. As long as we can look back, religion has destabilized the area. So we look at the Palestinians, and as long as the Palestinians are in a theocracy type mentality of like Islam and stuff like that, they're never going to make it. Just as you see the other nations there that are struggling, even though they might have oil wealth and stuff like that, freedoms of the people, freedom of individual sections of the people are highly hindered, and it's more of a totalitarian type regimes all throughout the Middle East, and that's what they're used to, so that's fine. So we do also understand that most of the time with the religion, as long as religion has brought anything into the argument, then it's going to be fucked. It's going to be fucked up. And that goes for the United States if we bring religion in, which we sometimes do, or if the Jewish people. But one thing is, you notice about the Jewish people in Israel, Judaism's became more globalist. Like, and what I mean by that is, it kind of understands that it needs the Gentiles, it needs people other than Jewish to survive, basically, such as the United States. So they look at it also at that is their land, their chosen land back from Abraham. So their religious thinking is also putting them at odds with how they view the entire situation. And as for America, the United States is one of the key allies to Israel in the area because Israel is a democratic nation. So the fact that we back it, our religious sect also, as you see a lot of people on the right, more so on the right, people who are Christian within the United States believe that they have to back Israel blindly because they are the chosen people, and they believe that Jesus was Jewish, he was Hebrew, that those are his people. So they feel that they have to blindly follow them without even looking into anything or asking questions about how Israel could do things better, stuff like that. So it's also another religious fervor. If you ask any hardline Christian person in the United States, it's back Israel. And they'll never tell you they're not going to back the Palestinians because of religion. It's not so much that they don't care about the people. It's just, of course, these two religions are at odds with each other. Even though they have so many similarities and they all come from the same group, they are at odds. Each one of them think each other are going to hell. So until we really get that issue, we're never really going to break down, or we're never going to have peace, because you're always going to have religious fundamentalists that are going to be knocking down the area. Only way you could really get out this is make a more kind of separation of church and state within the area, especially within the Muslim area. Make it where the economy gets better, that there's more jobs, that people can focus more on social issues by just survival like they have been. And so hopefully one day that'll happen, but until we really become more secular, it's not going to have any kind of issues right here. And the fact that the United States feels that they can't even question like the Israelis, or they look at that, and the reason we do is because we don't really have much of a ground to stand on, especially after Iraq and Afghanistan, after all these issues that we have home. We could sit here and we could try to act like we're holy and thou and we support, but there's a lot of issues too that we created in the area. There's a lot of people that we funded, that we used for our advantage, that weren't good people. And now we look at even like with the Assad regime. The Assad regime has been, there's been an insurgency and a civil war within that country for many years, but it seemed to fall pretty quick. And the fact that it fell so quick really, I think, has, the United States written all over it. And the fact that now Israel is entering Syria, and I can understand that, the Golan Heights area, because, they were under a peace treaty between Syria and Israel, and now that Assad's gone, they claim the peace treaty's now null and void, which I'm not sure that's how it works, but whatever. You notice the fact that Israel's now moving into Syria, into certain areas, and the United States is really not stopping this, is also shows the inability for communication between the two. Because here's one thing, and I know that a lot of people are going to look and be like, man, that sounds kind of anti-Semitic. It's not. It's really not, because the people of Israel are great, and the people of Palestine are great. The Palestinians are. It's just the governments are so religious theocracy, and it's been shoved down. They've all been brainwashed so much. The same as Americans have been brainwashed. But the only way we're going to make it through this is for everybody to have more of a secular mind and understand that we're all part of the same human race. I know that's simple and easy to say. Everybody's like, no shit. Really? Well, thank you for explaining that to me. No, but we look at like how we're going to move forward, how the United States moves forward. We need to realize as a group, and even we'll say a lot of the Christians within the United States, is that Israel is our friend, but not really our friend, if that makes any sense. So you got to understand, the Jewish people and the Israelis remember World War II when the Holocaust was happening. We turned away Jewish people trying to flee to the United States, and we wouldn't allow them in. And we put Hitler on the Time magazine Person of the Year. We said that the Olympics in the 30s that Hitler put was a grand event, and so they do kind of know that, but they also know that we are, the hand is feeding them right now. So they don't look at us as necessarily their friend. They look at us as a necessary evil. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you might say, oh, that's not true, Ben. Well, in the intelligence community, and I'll have to get the updated list, but I remember, so specifically when people get background checks or they get security clearances, things are checked, and especially to the spouses and all that. Are you foreign nationals? Do you have any contact with them? Blah, blah, blah. There's a few countries that are deemed high threat countries, and high threat countries that if your spouse or somebody's with them, there's a possibility that there could be a counterintelligence type issue going on. And this was back in the day, so I'm sure that the list is updated. But when I remember it was Syria, I believe North Korea, Iran, France, and Israel. And everybody's like, whoa, that seems kind of odd. Well, no, Israel, because Israel spies on us all the time. Israel is one of the top, when we have counter-espionage activities going on here, a lot of it is Israel. I remember being stationed, or, I remember being at a place where, it was an agency site, and they were always like, hey, you see around here, there's, in a different country, they're like, these Jewish schools are all fronts from Assad. They tell us, they're 100% trying to do signals intelligence on us, and they're trying to, get in on it. And what we used to always say, and how they explained it to us, because we were always like, why is Israel, attacking us, counter, espionage-wise more than like Russia? And they're like, oh, it's not really malicious. They just want to try to get ahead, or they want. And another thing you gotta understand too is Israel's really big on and just to bluntly say it, blackmail. They like to get information on people that they can blackmail, and they can tell you. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that the whole Epstein thing, even going back, the fact that his old lady, Ghislaine, however you say that, her dad was pretty big in the Mossad. So the Mossad have been doing this for a long time, trying to get stuff on America, because they realize that America can change on their mindset within every 4 years. So if the more people they can get, and the more people that they can blackmail in Congress and then all that, the more the you know the chance of the United States sticking by their side is the same. So that's one thing you got to understand. Israel's intelligence service is way better than any Muslim or intelligence service or any Muslim nation's intelligence service, because they get it. They were trained by the CIA, so they do know that who they are. So they also got a very robust signals intelligence, which our signals intelligence is most of the time pointed towards us. I mean, of course, because we're doing the same thing to most of these Muslim nations, and we share our intelligence with them in regards to specific areas, footprints in the Middle East. But we also know that they are constantly trying to get us. And but you can't tell most people that. You can't tell most people that maybe the Israelis get emboldened to do war crimes, and some of the things that they've done are definitely war crimes, the same as the things that we have done. I mean, Abu Ghraib in Iraq was horrible. I mean, we're not, let's not think that we're all some virtuous, continuous, perfect countries, because we're not, and we never will be. I mean, there's so much stuff that we've done, and we don't even have to go back to slavery and the Indians. We could just go back 20, 30 years and understand like how we fucked this entire world up by some of our policies, to include like Africa. And then we wonder why China kind of swoops in, and China's like, hey, we got money too, and we can kind of help you out. We can build you 5G stuff, Yeah, we know you're cool with the Americans, but what are the Americans really going to do? If anything, they're just going to come and they'll give you some money for a little bit, but then when you need it and your back's to the wall, they're 100% going to just leave you high and dry. I mean, Afghanistan learned that. Iran or Iraq learned that. Iraq was, under Saddam, very anti-Iran. I mean, they went to war with each other, used chemical weapons on each other, and then after the fall of Saddam, which was a tyrant, he needed to die, he needed to fall, but now that country of Iran is now basically a puppet state of Iran. And unfortunately, the gas, I mean, I remember everybody always saying, Bush is going in for the gas, for the oil, and at this point I was like, I wish we would have. I wish we had cheap fucking oil, some cheap gas, but as we know now that we went in there, I don't think we still know really the reason. It was some shady fucking business, and who knows, the military-industrial complex, which it sucks, but Iraq signed almost $1 trillion oil and gas deal with China, not with us. It's great. But what we do now, I think, is going to be very important to see how the country goes. Our meddling tends to not work. And even in, like, right now, the Ukraine, we are going hard. And I'm not really sure why we're going so hard in the Ukraine. There's a lot of things going on in the Ukraine that we don't realize. Like when when Putin, they're kind of the same, but when Putin said that there was Nazis in Ukraine, that's 100% accurate. I mean, there's an entire regiment, combat regiment in Ukraine that basically are based around the Nazis. I mean, that's something that we can't do. I mean, the corruption within Ukraine was systemically horrible. I mean, we were always saying that Ukraine was just so corrupt. And now all of a sudden, I guess they've given up their corruption, and we're giving them billions of dollars. But we don't really care about the people of Ukraine. Of course we don't. What we want to do is destabilize Russia and hopefully bleed them dry. But unfortunately, it seems like what we're doing is pushing them more towards our enemies, and they're creating more of an alliance within our enemies. And at one point, people will just forget about this and let go. So I don't know how this is going to work out. Hopefully, what we need is a peace treaty. That's the only way. Ukraine's going to have to give up some territory. Simple as that. And Russia's going to have to give up the war. Unless they just want to continue. Because at this point, it looks like that we will continue. Unless the new administration, which they say they will stop. But, you never know. There's a lot of things Trump said on his first term that he didn't do. Which is, a lot of things I'm glad he didn't. And, but we do need to understand that we have to isolationism, especially after World War II, we learned that. But sometimes at this point, it looks like that could be a good plan for the United States. And the only reason I say that is when we get our hands in stuff, we really screw it up because we just don't have the attention span to continue to try to make the world like us, which a lot of the world doesn't want to be like us. So anyway, with the Israeli thing, I think the only way they're going to ever get to the peace table is if we sit there and we finally realize that, hey, Israel's not this perfect little country that does everything that it wants to, it does everything according to the Old Testament Bible. No, we need to say, hey, look, you're fucking up. And the reason I'm saying you fucked up is because we fucked up. We don't want you to have an Afghanistan. We don't want to see you have thousands of your soldiers die. And we don't want to see, you destabilize their entire country and then end up having to just fucking leave because a new president got voted in and he has dementia. That's how we need to come about it. Be like, look, man, we're telling you this because this is what happened to us. And hopefully they can do that. And hopefully that the United States will allow cooler heads to prevail. But if not, who knows what's going to happen. All we're going to do, if we continue just supplying weapons and money to Israel and to Ukraine, what we're going to do is create an entire new generation of terrorists who will end up coming here in the future, and our children and our grandchildren are going to have to be paying these prices because they're going to be fighting people everywhere because those people will grow up. Those kids in Gaza, those kids in Ukraine, those kids in Russia, those kids that are getting bombed, blown up, parents dying, brothers dying. They realize that Israel or Ukraine, they couldn't, or Russia, couldn't be doing this without support from other people. And once they find out who those people have been supporting, that will be the enemy. We will, and with the religion will create a fundamentalism that we will end up having to be fighting. It will come to our shores, especially now. The globe is connected in like ways it never has been. That big ocean that used to protect us is not that big anymore. So unless we stop meddling and we stop trying to actually, create nations in our own image, it's only going to affect our children. And hopefully we don't continue on the path where our children are just going to be in a continuous state of war just like we have been. And other than that, thank you for watching. I mean, this channel is growing, and I thank you guys. And hopefully, we're going to have some interviews. I got some interviews with some people, especially in the intelligence community. Some, people that were in the Navy that were cryptologic technicians. I got one that's actually really interesting. A person that was a cryptologic technician, worked for NSA CSS, and is now, out of the military, but transition transgendered. I just think that would be a good conversation that some people might actually think, that we can actually have an intelligent conversation and question and answers and stuff like that back. So stay tuned, and we'll have some guests, and we'll plan on doing more, and hopefully production gets a little better. As you know, I'm just a regular person, just trying to, been around the block a couple times, just trying to, talk and use this as more of a therapeutic type thing, and hopefully that you can learn a little bit too. Nothing but love for everybody, even the people who don't like me. Love you. Like I said, let's watch this grow, and we'll try to do things better than we have been. Also, if you anybody that knows how to like edit stuff like that, man, I'm always trying to learn. So please just put a comment down there. As everybody wants to say, every normal person when they watch their kids watching YouTube, you always want to be able to say, hey, hit that fucking like button. Yeah, it sounds weird anyway. But anyway, guys, we'll start talking more current events. Like another thing that I plan on doing is how we have some of our highways here in Virginia are basically like death highways where people are getting shot and stuff like that just by driving down there. So I think that should be something, because I know a couple people who were actually shot. One military police officer was shot in the back of her head, but we'll try to see if we can interview her. And I also got another buddy that was, shot in the leg just driving. So yeah, that's happened here. Basically, we have black route highways. So, stay tuned, and we'll do more like that. And also, hopefully, as we grow, like I said, everything will get better, because I know, most people, when you're like, oh, look at this janky shit, this guy, you don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But, it is what it is. You got to grow. You got to start. And it'll get better. So, anyway, as I say, I thank you guys, and we'll see you later.